And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, I want to welcome you back to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. 25,000 watts of broadcasting power, broadcasting to parts of 4 states along the Gulf Coast, and then streaming live over the internet anywhere in the world where you have an internet connection. You can tune in. I want to remind you to stop by carlgallups.com. Check out all the links and all the archived records there. Daily devotionals written by me, as well as tons of videos, articles, and live news feeds. That's carlgallups.com. Well, folks, listen, the headline news is disturbing. It is biblical. It is prophetic. And it is something that I told you was going to happen, and I told you before it happened. Now, I'm not claiming to be a prophet, but I can add 2 plus 2, and I read and I research. I know what the Word of God says. I know what the headline news says. I have a little bit of an intelligence about me so that I can see things coming together. Months ago, well, let me back up and say this. The headline news that I'm referring to is that Islamists are now in control of Egypt. Islamists. That's how the news states it. That means, and then if you read the articles, it's very clear that the Islamists that they are talking about, primarily the Muslim Brotherhood, is now dominating Egyptian politics. The 10th largest standing military in the world, one of which we equip with United States equipment, $1.5 billion a year in military aid we have been sending to Egypt. They have tons of our equipment, a large and powerful military now in control by the Muslim Brotherhood and its brother faction of Al-Qaeda and conservative Sharia law Islamists. That's what the news media is reporting. I mean, even the liberal news media, even the mainstream news media reporting those facts. Now Egypt is being controlled by radical Islamists who will bring Sharia law. As a matter of fact, the article that I was referencing out of the mainstream media declares rather proudly that the Muslim Brotherhood is proclaiming, now that they have won these, by the way, these democratic elections, this wonderful democracy that was going to come to the Middle East and to Egypt, they have proclaimed that now that they have won through a democratic process, which is exactly what I told you they would say, now they want a more religious Egypt. What that means is Sharia state, a Sharia law state. And so that's what's getting ready to happen. The Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic fundamentalist. All of this has been done by the famed democratic elections. When Mubarak fell some months back, Israel panicked. If you listened to Freedom Friday, you know that I had VIPs out of Israel on my show in a state of panic, asking, what is America's president thinking? Because you see, all of this was precipitated by Barack Hussein Obama. In case you doubt that, let me remind you, if you heard the show months ago when I was doing Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups live, when all of this broke loose, if you didn't hear that show, then listen to this. The uprising in Egypt and the overthrow of Mubarak began on a Friday morning. When I was preparing for my show that Friday afternoon some months ago, I can't remember now when it was, March or April of 2011. I don't remember the exact dates. I don't have my notes in front of me, but it was months ago. When this was happening, that morning I saw on Drudge that this was beginning to happen. So I was paying attention to it. I was reading it. I was doing show prep, educating myself so that I could speak intelligently about it. When I went on the air that Friday afternoon, it was in full swing. The media was proclaiming that Egypt was in the midst of a revolution, that Mubarak probably would be ousted. Now, as I was reporting that, I was also reporting to you the information that I was getting out of my contacts in Washington, D.C., and my contacts in the Middle East and out of Israel, that if this happened, if Mubarak was ousted, it could be catastrophic for the Middle East and for Israel. Israel did not want Mubarak out. Now listen, Mubarak was a dictator, and I do not support dictator regimes. But the deal with Mubarak was this, that he had made peace, if you will, with the United States and with Israel, and he had outlawed the Muslim Brotherhood. He had outlawed Sharia law as being the way that Egypt would go. And there was a somewhat of a peace buffer, if you will, between Egypt and Israel. This is absolutely essential for Israel's security. With Mubarak gone, being overthrown nonetheless by an Islamic uprising, it's a direct threat to Israel's security. And so while I was reporting that, and by the way, I predicted then that if Mubarak went down and Egypt arose, if Sharia arose and the Islamic fundamentalist arose, I predicted back then that the Muslim Brotherhood would more than likely seize control of Egypt. At the same time, people were attacking me, saying, oh no, this is an uprising of democracy. It's an uprising of freedom. But there's no such thing as Islamic democracy. There's no such thing as Islamic freedom. And I predicted then that in the months to come, and here we are, that the Muslim Brotherhood would seize control, they would bring in Sharia law, and they would aim their sights at Israel. The Muslim Brotherhood was established in 1928 for the purpose of assuring that Jews in the Middle East were destroyed and or run out, and that Israel would never be a nation, and if it was, they would work for its destruction. In 1928, it was established. It's a historical fact that the Muslim Brotherhood aligned itself with Adolf Hitler during World War II to aid Adolf Hitler in destroying the Jews. That's an unarguable historical fact. Those records exist. Photographs exist of Hitler meeting with Muslim Brotherhood leadership in the Middle East for that purpose. And so, months ago, on that Friday live, this uprising was taking place in Egypt, the uprising against Mubarak, and while I was on the show live, the headlines of Drudge came up on the computer screen in front of me. I hesitated to even read it over the air because it was so shocking, but the headlines of Drudge said something like this. I'm paraphrasing now because it's been months, but it said something like this: British intelligence confirms that the uprising in Egypt was precipitated by Barack Obama and the American administration. Well, I finally did read that over the air, and I finally did report that over the air, and I had people mad at me for reading the report over the air. I didn't make it up. I was reading the headline news. But people were mad at me. How could I accuse Obama of being involved in the bringing down of Egypt? Of course, now we know that Obama actually claimed that. And now we know that that's an absolute fact, that the United States, under Obama's leadership, was involved in the ousting of Mubarak and the bringing down of the Egyptian system, and now, directly or indirectly, responsible for the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood. But should this be any surprise? Obama was raised in the Sunni Muslim tradition of Indonesia. His father was raised in the Sunni Muslim tradition of Kenya. Obama has gone on record. The Holy Quran says, the Holy Quran declares, he says that the Muslim prayers are the most beautiful sounds he's ever heard. I mean, the man is raised in the Sunni Muslim tradition. The Muslim Brotherhood is the Sunni terrorist arm of Islam. It is the radical Sharia law terrorist arm of Islam. And I have reported on P.P. Simmons in a video that when Obama was a senator, he involved himself as a senator, almost got in bad trouble for it. He involved himself in Kenyan politics, helping to overthrow the past constitution of Kenya and the past leadership for the purpose of bringing in a more Sharia-friendly leadership and a Sharia-friendly constitution. Obama involved himself in helping Kenya write their new constitution, which allows for Sharia law in Kenya as a Sunni Muslim. I reported that. Those facts are out there. It was in a video. I posted it on P.P. Simmons. Folks, this stuff, it doesn't take a prophet to see what's happening. And so all of that happened live on that Friday while I was on the air months ago, and I predicted then that in the months to come we would see not a freedom movement, not a movement of democracy, but rather we would see the Muslim Brotherhood seize control of Egypt. And today, that's the headline news. Now, shortly after that, of course, Libya falls. Gaddafi is under attack. A brutal, vile man who needed to go a long time ago. But the bottom line is Gaddafi, watch this now, is Shiite with a massive Sunni population in Libya. Well, of course, Obama involves American military assets, American economic support and assets to bring down Gaddafi on the heels of bringing down Mubarak. So see, what we have is a massive Sunni uprising precipitated by Barack Hussein Obama in the Middle East, using American military assets and American economic assets. Barack comes from a Sunni background. He's instituting a Sunni uprising. These are not freedom movements. These are not movements of democracy. In Egypt right now, the young people who thought they were a part of a freedom movement, they have no say-so. They have no control. Many of them are on the outside. The Coptic Christians are being killed and being run out of Egypt. Their churches are being burned. People are being killed. 100,000 Coptic Christians or more have already fled the nation of Egypt. And now that the Muslim Brotherhood has taken control and Sharia law is on its way, look for more killings, more persecution, and more people fleeing the nation of Egypt. Also look for the tensions in the Middle East to ratchet up, because now we have Russian warships in the Mediterranean. We have Russia and Iran in cohorts together, developing nuclear programs. We've got Israel probably conducting covert operations in Iran right now against those nuclear facilities. Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Russia, all forming alliances. Turkey as well. Now Egypt and Libya have fallen into the hands of a Sunni Muslim regime with the Muslim Brotherhood taking control. And don't forget, Egypt and Libya precipitated by Barack Hussein Obama. You see, I told you before some of you put this man in office that a person's background, a person's character, a person's faith matters in the office of presidency because it is their worldview, and their worldview often determines how they lead and how they govern and how they invest America's military and economic assets around the world. It matters. Please remember that in future elections. A person's worldview, a person's character, it matters when we put them in the office of the presidency. Also, please don't forget that I produced a video, put it on P.P. Simmons. It went viral. It now has millions and millions of views. With Avi Lipkin, a former Israeli military officer, his wife Rachel, who now works for military intelligence of Israel. Her job is to translate Arabic transmissions coming out of the Middle East, give them to the Israeli officials to let them know what the Arabic radio and television personalities are saying about Arabic politics and Muslim Islamic politics in the Middle East. Rachel Lipkin was born in Egypt. She speaks fluent Arabic. She is an Egyptian Jewish, married to Avi, who of course was born in the United States, now has dual citizenship. And if you will remember, Rachel Lipkin in the 2008 elections was receiving transmissions out of the Middle East that Saudi Arabia television was proclaiming that soon there would be a, quote, Muslim president in the White House propped up by Saudi Arabia. Rachel Lipkin reported that. Avi Lipkin reported that before Obama ever won the election. They reported that because she didn't know what these Arabic transmissions were talking about. She didn't know that there was a Muslim candidate running for president. So she asked her husband. And as they began to investigate, they discovered that one of the candidates, this young black man from Chicago by the name of Barack Hussein Obama, was raised in the Sunni Muslim tradition and was the only candidate that had a Muslim background. But he wasn't even leading in the polls when they were getting this information. They didn't understand how that could happen. But look who won the election. And look what Obama has now done in the Middle East. And don't forget that Avi and Rachel Lipkin also reported, and I made a video on this that went viral, that after Obama won the election and after he visited Egypt, reports were coming out of the Middle East in Arabic that Obama supposedly had promised to high-ranking Egyptian officials that after he passed a health care reform back in America, that they would, quote, see what he would do for the Middle East. I made that video before any of the Egyptian-Libya stuff. People mocked the video. How could I believe that junk? How could I believe Avi and Rachel Lipkin? Well, I believe Rachel Lipkin because she works for the Israeli government. This is her job, to listen to this stuff. But we made the video, we put it out there, and lo and behold, here we are. Now we see what Obama has done for the Middle East after he pushed through a socialist health care reform in the United States. Now, folks, I made that video, and Rachel reported that before any of this happened. This is not after-the-fact reporting. So now we have seen it, and now we are seeing it, and I'm telling you, we haven't seen anything yet. Egypt is now in control by radical Sharia law Islamists and the Muslim Brotherhood. They hate the United States. They hate Israel. Their goal is to destroy Israel. Libya has fallen. The Muslim Brotherhood is rising to power there as well. Libya, Egypt, Iran, cohorting together with Lebanon, Syria, Russia, Turkey, Russian warships in the Mediterranean, Israel conducting covert destruction operations in Iran right now, Israel surrounded on all sides by enemies desiring to destroy her, and the United States under Barack Hussein Obama. He precipitated what happened in Egypt and what happened in Libya and who knows what else, aiding and abetting much of the radical Islamization of the Middle East. Gee, do you see anything biblical about any of this? We'll be right back after this brief time out.